If people in the chat,
Hello.
if people in the chat can just give us a little bit of a hello,
Confirmation.
if we're live, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, that'd be great. Braden, don't forget to record on your end.
So yeah, that's a good idea. Ooh, smart. Okay, so now we're recording. Now we should be streaming. If we just get some hellos in the chat, that'd be great. We have not had hellos in the chat yet, which is why I'm concerned.
Yay! All right, thank you so much, Reddy. All right. So
Sweet.
Welcome for those who are new to the cEDH cast. My name is Ian, and this is my co-host Braden, right above me.
Hello.
We are cEDH content creators. We do podcast content, we do YouTube content, and this week we are breaking down a deck I've been very excited about for a couple weeks now. This is Winota, Joiner of Forces. My primer list I like to call Winota's Staxy Monster Mash. So the genesis of this deck, I guess, came from me just looking at the card over and over again. I was actually really just into Ikoria as a set. I just kept finding, more and more different legendary creatures in the set that became more and more interesting to me. I've made a Luris deck. I've worked on several Kinnan decks with people. I have my Dawnmaker Thrasios deck, which is like a hybrid Kinnan Zerda deck in a Thrasios shell. I've done a lot of work with Ikoria. I have a Luris deck as well. So that set was just really interesting to me. Kazurikima, how can I always forget, from C20, came out at the same time. So it's all been a lot of really good stuff at the same time. And Winota Joiner of Forces really stuck out to me recently because, I was looking around and I looked at the card and I said, that is the first time we've ever had, artificial card advantage in Boros colors. And to me, that was something that Boros really hasn't had before. Yes, despite the fact that it is still an attack combat-based deck, Winota not only draws you cards by getting these humans what would be into your hand, but instead she's putting them directly on the battlefield. So she's not only cheating card advantage, she's cheating in mana, and that's pretty huge. I mean, with stuff like Kalia, you can always whiff out because you don't have a big creature in your hand. But with Winota, you're always getting that consistency, and you're hitting the creatures off the top of your library.
Yeah,
the biggest.
It's like card and mana advantage, which are two of the weakest aspects of Boros. So
right, and this is the first time they've just thrown all that out the window and given us something. And the biggest trouble I had with this list was finding the balance of humans to non-humans to permanents that aren't going to be able to trigger Winota to permanents that can be hit off Winota. Stuff like that has been a really hard balance to find, and that's why I actually didn't even sleeve up the decks per week. I just had it on this Moxfield page, just tweaking the numbers, going into playtesting, which I'll show you some later. That was I pretty obsessively worked on that. And if you can see, Braden, if you want to point over the number of creatures right now, there are 40 creatures in this list, which is very unusual for a cEDH deck.
Yeah, that's about as many as Animar. That's
yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
It's pretty wild. But you just need that many creatures. You need the creatures to be able to trigger Winota, and you need the payoffs for being able to hit it. Now, a lot of people, the first sort of instinct when I talk to people about this deck is that it is, people will want to go towards the token spread version of the deck, playing things like Angraths, Marauders, and stuff like that. And I just don't think it's a realistic way to take the list. Just because, realistically, in a cEDH pod, if you're just you attack the first time with Winota and you take out a Pia Nalar or something like that, right? And you're oh, I have this Thopter that'll trigger it again next turn, or a Pia and Kieran, which makes 2 or 3, non-human tokens. That stuff can get out of hand really fast, but you're not interacting with the table at all. So I said, what's the best way to do this? So I literally went to Scryfall, typed in the word human, typed in the Boros colors, looked at every single one. I noticed 2 things. One, ton of stacks humans. They're really effective stacks pieces, and also on a separate search I noticed there's a lot of stacks creatures that can trigger Winota as well. The next thing I noticed was there are a lot of interweaving combos or creatures that enter the battlefield, and normally you have to pay a premium for to search, but they can find you combo pieces. So those are things like Imperial Recruiter, Recruiter of the Guard, cards like that. So that's kind of how this list came about.
Yeah, like 3 mana tutors are pretty bad, but when they're
Yeah.
free,
Yeah, exactly,
it's
exactly.
it's pretty
So a
nuts.
lot of people will ask me when they see the list, like, oh, how do you even get Kiki Jiki? And I'm like, well, my tutors just fly off the top of my library. I don't have to pay a single mana for them, and then the card's in my hand, right?
How many creature tutors are you running that tutor up Kiki Jiki? Is it two?
Specifically, right now, I think there's only three. Because I think we have Imperial Recruiter, Recruiter of the Guard, and Goblin Recruiter. I actually was thinking about adding in Thalia's Lancers today as another piece that's actually in our maybe board right now. But those are officially like the tutors that I guess I also have Gamble, so that's another way to do it. But you asked that question. It sounds like, oh, maybe that's something I run into. But I really haven't ever had a game where I haven't seen Kiki. I know it's a lot of double negative there, but I literally every single game where I've been in a good position to go off, I've just been able to have access to Kiki because when Winota starts churning through your deck, it's like
Yeah, I
nearly
mean,
impossible not to get it.
you could like pretty reasonably see every card in your deck in a game that goes
Mm-hmm.
long enough. Like, if you're
Oh,
getting
very
like
true.
if you're getting like 3, then 4, then 5 Winota triggers, let's say, like because you have like
Yeah,
a turn one
yeah,
Rabble Master or something, followed up by a turn two Winota, which is like
yeah,
insane, but possible. Um,
yeah, totally.
you could, you're really starting to like see a lot of cards.
Yeah,
So I find that to be like realistic. Um, it's kind of like the Paco
it
situation where it's like, wow, like it has
right.
so many points of disruption, but like they're
Yes.
busy
Oh,
with
thank
other
you, thank
things.
you, chat. Modcatcher also can tutor Kiki Jiki directly to the battlefield. That's huge. I totally forgot about that for a
Oh
second.
yeah, is that the
Uh,
4 mana one that's like pay 3 and
yeah,
tap?
that might be
Yo,
the
mob
worst
capture,
card that is the best card in this deck.
the highest
It is.
synergy. It's like
It's yeah. It's just wild in this deck because the amount of times I just am going into combat, I hit that off Winota, and I'm like, oh, I just win next turn because either
yeah,
I'll have one of the B pieces to a Kiki combo on the battlefield, or it itself for 3 mana sets up the conspicuous Snoop combo. Because on upkeep, you can tutor your Goblin Recruiter, which will put it directly
yeah,
onto
yeah,
the
yeah.
battlefield, and then you can use the Snoop combo immediately, which
It's
is like
interesting.
really spicy.
Yeah, in the other thing it does is like even if that's like for some reason you've been so disrupted that you can't even do that, it does find like sharpshooter, and sharpshooter is pretty crazy. I don't know if you're on Twin, are you? Are you on Twin?
I am on Splinter Twin, yes.
Yeah. So like
Actually, just added Heliod's Pilgrim today, so I can
yeah,
go find
it, oh
Twin.
my god, that's awesome. So yeah, like if people don't know, so God, what is it? I just said the name. What
Splinter
is it?
Twin?
No, the card that goes infinite with it. Uh,
Oh, Sharpshooter, yes.
Goblin Sharpshooter, yes. So I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
Sharpshooter. How much mana is it? 3? So it
It's
should
a
be
3 mana. Yeah, yeah.
right here. Okay, so Goblin Sharpshooter. I'm just going to explain how the combo works real quick.
Yeah, it's a little
So,
intricate.
so you tap Goblin. You put a Splinter Twin on Goblin Sharpshooter, and you tap Goblin Sharpshooter to make a copy of Goblin Sharpshooter. The new copy has haste. You use it. You kill a mana dork. Let's say you kill any creature. If you can kill a creature, that's all. That's the requirement. Now you untap both Goblin Sharpshooters. Uh, Now your Goblin Sharpshooter that has a Splinter Twin on it taps to make a copy with Splinter Twin, and then the second one you have, that's the original, you deal 1 damage to a creature or player, and then the new Goblin Sharpshooter kills itself, and then you untap both. So what ends up happening is you can deal infinite damage to any number of targets. It's a pretty intricate combo that doesn't really appear. It doesn't really make sense on face value, but I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure Lurker discovered it a couple years ago, and it's actually
Yeah,
pretty popular in like some of the more stack C lists and
yes.
any deck that's like on a high density of like Goblin tutors.
Yeah. So the cool
So
thing about sort of the genesis of this list was the discovery of the combos for me. So I was one of the things that got me really excited was this idea for Winota, just playing some stacks creatures like I described earlier. That was sort of how this got started, right? And I was like, oh, like that's like a really good card advantage engine. It gets mana, And then I was like, oh, it's also viable, right? Because it has these interwoven combos into it, right? So like Kiki Jiki is able to combo with, I believe, 4 creatures in the deck. It's Combat Celebrant, Village Bell Ringer, um, Zealous Conscripts, and oh no, sorry, Splinter Twin combos with 4 things. Kiki combos with 3. And also Kiki is a part of the conspicuous Snoop combos, which we can go to later. Splinter Twin combos with Sharpshooter, like Braden was just talking about, and the 3 creatures that I just mentioned, all of which can be hit off of Winota's triggers. Combat Celebrant was actually a really new discovery, so thank you to the people in the Discord, and I believe Crossfire Cat also helped me with that one.
Yeah. Do you want me to get the link to the?
Yes, I posted it earlier. I
Alright.
can post it again.
Sure.
Let's,
It's better if you do it.
I will. I'll throw my primer list back up here, and I'll once again throw it in the Discord. So yeah, I'm noticing a couple cards here from chat. So Mirror Entity, that card is actually really mana hungry, and the combat damage win isn't really viable for this deck. Mangara, I tried it first, but it's very clunky.
Mirror
I
Entity
actually didn't find it trigger.
Mirror Entity doesn't work with Winota, does it? It.
No, so changelings don't trigger Winota.
Yeah. So
it can only
I
be
think
hit off of Winota.
Yeah. So notably, if you're every creature type, you are a human, and so that means you are
Yes.
not a non-human.
Not non-human.
So
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like changelings lose a little bit of viability because they're not really triggering Winota, and to be honest, they're usually pretty bad rates, and they're not worth being cheated.
yeah, there really aren't any changelings that are so crazy that them being a creature is like
Yes.
especially significant.
Right. Like they're usually broken in decks where like they cheat the mana cost really low. That's not what this is. So I had and if you want to go through some of the creatures right now, Braden, we can talk about so we mentioned the combo pieces earlier, and then a lot of them you will see, a lot of crossover from either Pod or from Heliod, or a lot of like the classic stacks decks in our format. We have things like Linvala, Keeper of Silence. We have 4 Thalia effects in Thalia herself. We have Glow Rider, which is just a 3-mana Thalia without first strike.
Rider's sick.
It's a human. It's great. A big part of this deck is knowing the updated creature types for for a lot of creatures. Bryn Wingmare is another Thalia effect with flying, and Thorn of Amethyst is the one on an artifact. So a lot of Thalia effects in the deck. That's specifically because 1, they synergize really well with Winota because 2 of them are human. And 2, we have a pretty big ad nauseam meta going on right now, so they usually help a lot in that matchup.
Ian's now convinced on the ad nauseam meta. Okay, all right.
Listen, I had this in.
if Winota is playable because of the ad nauseam meta, I will accept that as a, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. I had one question from the chat.
Past this. Oh yeah.
So Amelia Henson mentioned that I assume she had a lot of success with Mangara. I assume that's Mangara, the new one. That's like a
Crom. The Diplomat.
Yeah, that actually does seem kind of interesting to me because like it is like a Crom, and Crom's broken. So I'm kind of like wondering, like, what was your experience with it?
So I don't think Crom is a broken card. Before you burn me at the stake, wait a second. I think Crom is extremely good in the command zone.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the biggest benefits of Crom is that it is a 4/4 flyer that deals commander damage with haste.
Yeah.
Mangara does none of those things.
I do think
Mangara does trigger off the second spell, which is fine, but to be honest, cards in hand in this deck aren't great. Like, I'm not saying, obviously, traditional card advantage isn't good, but I think at the point in the game... So think about it like this. Each creature in the deck...
Can I give you a shortcut?
Wait.
Can I give you a shortcut? You're playing
Sure.
You're playing Deafening Silence, right? And like...
Yes.
In Rule of Law? I think that's like the biggest...
And Eidolon of Rhetoric, yeah.
I think that's like a shortcut for this entire conversation, right? Because you're playing 3 Rule of Law effects.
Even without those, I'm really down on that card in general. But yes, you are right. We do have a ridiculous amount of tax effects. We do have, Rule of Law effects. Like, these things stop multiple cards being played a turn. A 2/4 lifelink body isn't really relevant. It doesn't attack in. And one important thing for the thesis of this version of the deck, and the reason you don't see 6-mana creatures that make tokens, and you don't see Engrass Marauder, is that I want every single creature in this deck to be castable. I think 4 mana is where you're playing with the line. Now, Zealous Conscripts is really the contradiction to that rule, and that's because it's a combo piece. And Mogcatcher, same thing. It's
also
literally a 1-card combo.
I used to play a lot of Kiki decks in the format.
Yes.
In the long gone by era of like Thrasios, before Thrasios and Tymna, and or like when they first came out. And I found that like a lot of the times with Zealous Conscripts is like you can steal a mana crypt and then like tempo out another thing. Like,
oh yeah.
That was the thing I did a few times. Or like even just untap your mana vault. So like you're like turn 1 mana vault, turn 2 Zealous Conscripts, untap my mana vault, play some rocks or a stacks piece or something.
I actually had a crazy interaction the other day where my opponent, we knew in hand they had the second half to their Dockside combo, and I had Zealous Conscripts and Skirk Prospector on the battlefield. So Zealous came in, I took his Dockside, and I sacked it.
That's awesome. That's sick.
Which was super cool, and they were not able to go off that turn. One card I really want to highlight that has been absolutely awesome for me lately, as an early aggressor, and 2, just a great stack piece, is Spirit of the Labyrinth. As I mentioned, we don't really care about traditional card advantage, like cards in our hand in the deck. We care about creatures being thrown onto the battlefield, and between Opus Thief, between all of the decks playing Time Twister, between the fact that Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora are like dominating the grindier side of the meta, Peer into the Abyss gets shut down. I literally had a game the other day where I was playing against Blue Farm, and the guy was like, well, I can pay 20 life and 7 mana to draw 1 card. I was like, you can do that.
Not even. They can't even do that. They already drew for turn.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. So it's a blowout. Yeah, that card's awesome.
I love Samurai of the Pale Curtain. That is awesome.
That's a big shout out to the Heliod Discord on that one.
That's sick. Wow. Instead, so it's not even a trigger; it's a replacement effect. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes, that was Tekwin back in the days of Flash Hulk, and it just kind of stuck around because there's enough things used in the graveyard that I think is awesome. Also, it's a 2 mana early creature that triggers Winota.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. What number do you name on Sanctum Prelate most often?
Sanctum Prelate's a tough card. There was the one game I played against you where I know it was 2 Blue Farm decks, and I did name 5. But that's kind of the exaggerated case. But 90% of the time, I think I named 2.
I like
luckily,
one a lot.
Luckily, we have a lot of tutors in our format, like Mystical Tutor and things like that show you what's coming, which is awesome, because I often will... someone will do like an Eladamri's Call or a Worldly or a Mystical Tutor on their turn. Or I guess not Eladamri's Call, because that reveals creatures. But things of that nature. 1 and 2, it really snuffs those out.
So something EG said that I just want to clarify on is
sure.
They said it's a shame it's a samurai and not a human. It would be disgusting. It's actually better that it's not a human, because you want to get the trigger off Winota. So you played on turn 2, maybe you have a Lotus Poe or something. You play the turn 3 Winota, go to combat. Now you get a combo piece or something. So it's actually an upside.
Yeah. So to be clear, Winota triggers off non-humans attacking and flips into humans. I know that can get a little crazy. Winota herself is a human. Good thing to note. But Winota doesn't care about herself attacking. So I get the question a lot in the Discord about haste enablers. I really don't think they're necessary in the deck, because I've had a lot of times where I play 1-drop stacks creature, 2-drop stacks creature, 3-drop stacks creature. The board's pretty heavily locked out. I play Winota, and now I'm flipping over 3 more creatures onto my battlefield.
Winota doesn't even count itself. So
no, Winota does not count itself.
This card is almost fair. It's not fair. It's banned. It's banned in Historic, I think, or something like that. But
it is, yes, I believe banned in Historic, and maybe is it still League 1 Standard? No, because the card got banned out from underneath it, which was the other half of the combo. But yes, banned in Historic Winota. So if
Someone said name 7 dab on the PETA players.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
I believe that's Crossfire, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
um,
I have. I guess I'll try to think of some questions. Have you ever wished that you had the white free spell? Um, the one that says
oh, the
prevent.
board wipe.
No, no, no. The one that's prevent. All your creatures gain indestructible if you control your commander. It costs 0. The white fierce
Yeah,
guardianship.
the anti-board wipe card. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you have that in here?
No, I don't. So, realistically, the most prevalent board wipe in our format is Toxic Deluge. Even the decks that run board wipes run that. Some decks run Pyroclasms, but if you actually take a pretty close look to the deck, yes, there are a number of hands and a number of like combo turns that do get blown up by Pyroclasms, but there's also a lot of X3s, X4s. Winota herself is an X4. When I refer to X4, I mean the power is pretty irrelevant and the toughness is. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely it's a balance, but there are definitely hands where I have had a Pyroclasm played against me and it's only killed one creature. And then there are hands that I've played where a Pyroclasm has been played against me and it's killed my
Yeah.
entire board.
And you
So
do have a card like there's Alcide, I don't know, of Life's
yeah, yeah,
Bounty, where you'd be like, all
yeah.
right, you get protection, I'll keep
Prevent
my
damage.
Thalia or
Yeah.
something.
I actually just took out Selfless Savior today, which is a 1-drop that sacks to give something indestructible because I'm just not running into the need for something like that a lot. The games are often the 1-for-1 removal doesn't really tend to set me back a lot. Now, if you notice, there's no homeward path in the mana base right now. In the beta original version of the deck, it was in there, and it might go back in.
Who's gonna steal Winota?
You would be surprised, Braden. You would be surprised. A lot of people think it's fun, so they'll take it. It's not the best mentality, but people do it. But right now,
Excuse me, this is cEDH. Can you please get back to...
I don't know. I think stealing Winota is pretty bad.
Yeah, I also agree. But sometimes you're in such a dominant position that they take Winota, so you do not have Winota.
That's fair.
That has happened more realistically. It wasn't necessarily they wanted Winota. It was more like the board was basically locked down. Cool interaction, I want to point out, with cards like Magus of the Moon, with cards like Grand Abolisher that have these static effects as soon as they are present on the battlefield.
They can't be
what happens... Exactly, as Braden was just saying, they can't be responded to. Even Mind Sensor as well, but that doesn't actually get triggered in, so that's irrelevant. But the Thalia effects, any of the static abilities that do not create a trigger are awesome in the deck. Because what happens is they will be flipped off of Winota, and in no time between me choosing that creature and it being on the battlefield is their priority being passed around. So hypothetically speaking, you're playing against a Najeela player. Like I was playing in a pod yesterday that was like Tim Necrom, Najeela, Kenrith. And I just happened to flip over a Magus of the Moon onto the battlefield. And they couldn't respond. They couldn't float their mana. They couldn't do anything because that's just the way it works, which was awesome. Because it is sometimes you just lock them out without them being aware that it's about to happen. And it really, really... Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's happened to you at least twice, Crossfire. Yeah, so if you guys check out the mana base, you may notice 2 peculiar lands that you do not often see in these decks, and that would be Mishra's Factory and Blinkmoth Nexus. Yes, I've thought about Inkmoth Nexus.
Come on,
I've thought about Inkmoth as well.
Inkmoth's just better, isn't it?
So they are lands that survive a Pyroclasm, and they are ways to trigger Winota. If you have hands that are like very explosive, where you want to get out Winota very early, they are just resilient ways to trigger Winota. And I've noticed that, if you play into a Pyroclasm or a Deluge and those hands where you just can't do anything before it comes down, they're great. I'm very happy with them, and they make our mulligans a lot less awkward in general.
Why did you choose Blinkmoth over Inkmoth? Come on, Ian.
Really, it's such a minimal distinction, but I really didn't think the Infect would get there. I'm happy to be proven wrong on that one.
I guess the life total, like the 1 damage, is probably more valuable. Sadly,
9 times out of 10, yeah. Unfortunately, I know it's the spice. I know, buddy.
that hurts me.
I know.
Hurts me right here.
So, as I mentioned, Combat Celebrant was a call out by people who I've been talking to with the deck, a recent addition. One, awesome combos with Kiki, so it's an amazing piece in the deck. I've played it, I think the past 5 games I've had with Combat Celebrant in, and every game I've had it, that card's a slam dunk, because it allows you, if you have Kiki, you can still win with a tapped Combat Celebrant.
I just realized
and
if you just hit a village bell ringer, you're like, I win?
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances?
Yes, the
I
Village
win
Bell
here?
Ringer synergy is pretty amazing. And also the fact that it does just double your beginning of combat triggers or your Winota swings. So, for example, I was playing a game earlier where I had a Loyal Apprentice and a Goblin Rabblemaster out, and I had the Celebrant, and I was able to swing, exert it, go to another combat, and then the second combat, in total that combat, I had, I think, 8 Winota triggers for that one turn.
That's
yeah.
crazy. All right.
So this is a snowball list by far.
Yeah. Do you want to just like do some mulligans with it and just kind of like?
Yeah, sure. So this is a interesting deck to mulligan with. It's not easy. I will say it is a hard deck to mulligan with, but it's also the same kind of general idea when you mulligan. So let's check it out.
Oh well, Dockside.
I'm not in love with this hand.
You're just saying that because I like Dockside. You literally can just
no.
gamble
Don't get me
for
wrong. Dockside is.
You can literally just gamble for Mana Crypt.
Oh, that's fair.
Guys,
it's.
You can go gamble Mana Crypt if you get the mana. If you like discard the Blink Moth, it's insane. If you discard Dockside, it's fine.
The problem though.
If you discard Dockside, which is the best card in the hand, you get to play Phyrexian Revoker, then play a turn 2 Winota attack with the Revoker. If you discard, no matter what card you discard, you're fine, right?
No, this is you're right. It's good. It's good. I didn't think about the gamble first. But yes.
And then if you discard the Mana Crypt, you're like, I literally don't care. I have a Dockside in my hand.
Yeah. I would argue, by the way, that as equally as good as Dockside is, Eidolon is very good in this deck. It's pretty amazing.
Sure, I just think that Dockside's broken.
No, I get Dockside's broken. However, I have not been. We do play in different metas, and the consistent pods where Dockside's like 4 on turn 2, I don't see that.
You will.
It's usually by turn 3
Eventually
or 4.
You will. Eventually you will. I like this one too.
Let's check this one out. So, this one is interesting. It's very slow, which I do not like.
I like that you had you could give the turn 3 Winota with a Ornithopter, and you have a Tear.
Yes, so that's actually Ornithopter was literally added today for that reason, because there are some times where you just need your curve to line up, and you want an attacker, and you don't want to have to stress about having that attacker and then playing Winota.
Do you run Walker? I think you should be on all of them, to be honest. If you're not on Walker, you should definitely be on Walker.
I don't think so. So here's the deal. The smaller creatures that are meant to attack in the list, the reason Ornithopter's in here is because it's evasive. The things like Memnite and Phyrexian Walker, they don't attack in usually for me.
I have a question for you.
Turn 2 or 3.
I have a question for you. Is having 3 toughness basically the same thing as having evasion if you have 0 power?
That's a fair question. Walker, I would say. I don't think Memnite's worth it.
Yeah, I didn't suggest Memnite. I specifically did not. I think Walker is...
Okay.
Is probably that extra point.
I think Walker is at least worth testing out.
Yeah, it lets you get through Docs. It lets you get through Dark Confidant, Tymna, obviously Thrasios. I think there's enough decks that it just kind of slips through. Obviously, the Kess deck is not going to have a blocker. Is this a keep or mull? I can see either. As a first 7, it might not just be good enough.
I think it depends on your pod. If you think that the wear could save you, probably a keep.
It hits a Tymna, it hits a Remora or a Rhystic Study, which is
a Rhystic Study. Yeah. This is a keep in a medium speed pod. If you're playing against a bunch of mid-range decks, this is a fine keep. And I think you have to be early in the turn order. If you're third or fourth, don't even.
I agree. I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Let's go again. This one's probably not quite there. Just not enough.
No. This will be an audio format, so we should probably start reading these, huh?
It's fine. We can figure it out. It's
okay.
It's fine. We can
so this one's super awkward too. I actually don't run into this problem a lot with multiple planes because we are running 6 planes, but I feel like I see the non-basic lands in my deck way more often.
I think this is probably fine.
So here's the deal, right? So Legion Warboss and Rabblemaster are like pretty busted in the deck, but if we don't get there for the second red source, we're in for a bad time.
That's fair. I do like Hope of Gear, though. Hope of Gear.
Unlike a first or a second, maybe on a I think first or second 7, I don't keep this. On like a 6, I definitely do.
Let's go to 6.
Yeah.
This is hot. I love it. I love this hand.
What about it specifically?
I love Hope of Gear, and I love Rule of Law, and I love Pyroblast. Those are like 3 awesome cards.
That's fair. Yeah.
Hope of Gear is. I don't know if you all read this card. Until your next turn, target player who is dealt damage by Hope Gearper, and if you take extra combats, you get to pick. That. Cannot cast non-creature spells. They're not casting creature spells. Whoever you're picking the person who's not casting creature spells. If you pick the blue farm player, they're just like Timna, I guess. I love this card.
Shout out to chat. I do have a section in my primer talking about Breath of Fury. I think the card's way too cute. We don't have enough evasive creatures that we can guarantee hits. It's kind of a gross card. So to be clear,
6, by the way,
this is a fine 6, right? So to be clear, the mulligan strategy for this deck, there is a world where I'm actually inclined to mulligan this hand because I mulligan this deck very aggressively. If you were playing a stacks deck, you have to be ready to keep up with some of the faster things that exist in our format. And you have to be ready to disrupt them. Hope was really good there.
A turn to Aethersworn Canonist, like his in this hand, I think that's probably one of the best things you can do in the format, right? Is a stacks deck?
I would not keep this.
Really?
So,
that's
yes.
I think turn 2 Aethersworn Canonist is just so good. And then turn 2 Ranger Captain of Bios,
So, now, Braden, what's important about the 2 cards that you just mentioned?
They're white?
What's their creature type?
Is Aethersworn Canonist a human?
It is.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Well, Ranger Captain of Eos gets a 0-drop that you can just play. It gets Ornithopter, so you're fine.
Sure, yeah. I have grabbed Ornithopter with Ranger Captain, definitely. So I would never keep this.
Sorry. If you look at that art, that is not human. I'm sorry.
I agree. I was on the same page because I was going through Scryfall and I was like, "What in God's name?"
I'm sorry. I'm clearly a Winota scrub. Clearly a scrub. Don't understand the creature types.
But no, I just don't think a hand where you don't do anything on the first turn is viable.
That's fair.
To be honest. The second 7. 90% of gamble hands I keep. Hot take.
This hand's so rough.
90% of if you're at a 7, I will almost always gamble for a Mana Crypt. That's pretty much my prerogative. I think it's an aggressive deck and you have to play aggressively. So, Limbala, oh yeah. Not only is it busted, but it triggers Winota. It's so good.
There is part of you that wants to hold the gamble so you can Heliod's Pilgrim into whatever you need, or Snoop into whatever you need. Play the Snoop.
But then you're just not doing anything.
I know. I think this hand is awkward.
Oh, definitely, yes. But as I said, if you get the crypt, if you pitch the crypt, this is, sometimes you lose the gamble. Sometimes it's red and tomb. But if you keep that, you have a really good curve going on in that hand.
This hand's pretty rough, too.
What are we... Is this a fresh 7?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think you throw it
I'm a little sad we haven't seen any of our fast mana yet. Which is a little
not. To be fair, we saw Gamble twice, and that's basically Soul Ring.
I guess. Or not. Or very much not.
The vast majority of the time it is Soul Ring, though.
Sure. I don't like this at all. It's pretty bad. Let's mulligan that. Okay.
This is pretty slow too. The lack of double
This
white is like hyper.
So
rough.
this is one of those interesting hands that I don't mind.
If I could.
I don't mind curving. Playing the fair game, I think, only does well with two types of effects right now. I think it's Blood Moon effects and Rule of Law effects. So the fact that we are, yes, I just said I don't like hands where you don't do anything turn one. However, Canonist turn one into turn two Eidolon. As I said, I'm a real big Eidolon fan in this deck.
I think Canonist is like legitimately one of the best cards in the format. Hot take.
Yeah, I think it is. It comes in at a good time. I think Deafening Silence it just does it better. One thing I will say about Canonist is that sometimes your opponents get those opportunities where they can like end step Nas and then like play rock. That's not always the case with Canonist, and like it does the job most of the time.
To be fair, if they resolve a Nas against any Rule of Law effect, they just bounce the Rule of Law.
Yeah.
So
right. What I'm saying is like a lot of the time, if they're restricted to one spell, sometimes they don't have the mana to get there right away. You know what I mean? But if it's artifacts only, like there's a little bit of maneuvering that can be done there, right?
Sure.
So, but I would. This is one of those fair hands that I would keep because it plays the fair game so well, and then just curves into Winota naturally.
Sure. Let's just do one more, real quick.
Sure.
We're just gonna pretend that didn't happen.
There's no lands makes it really hard. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Do you go...
Legion's Landing? Let's
Sorry,
go.
Do you go like this?
Talisman.
Oh, yeah, sorry. This.
Yeah, Talisman into Legion's Landing. Oh, yeah.
Do you crack this, play this?
You can. I wouldn't fault anyone. Yeah, I mean, it also gets you another creature next turn. I mean, but Torch Courier has haste, so it doesn't really matter, right? So yeah, that's a turn 2 double Winota trigger. I'm like pretty okay with that.
So how many do you look at? Top
6.
So let's see what we got.
Yeah, let's do the flips. Oh, pretty good one. Good start. Oh. Wow, that is a 6. Look at that 6. Oh my god.
I think you hit the drain. Nah, you hit the Glow Rider.
It depends on the meta. I find Drannith more effective, especially turn 2. Turn 2 Drannith is pretty good.
Is it though?
Yes, at least where I've been playing. Yeah, turn 2 Drannith is pretty good.
Alright, so move bottom. We still have another trigger.
Yeah, you still have another trigger. That's the thing with this deck. It snowballs.
Ooh, there you go.
That's a combo piece. Nice. Oh, well, now it looks bad that I didn't keep the Celebrant.
It's fine.
Yeah, so you just you hit the Pilgrim and you go get your Splinter Twin for when you combo off later.
Alright, seems good.
Yeah, dude.
Alright, so we're gonna close. Ooh, did I? Looks like I closed it out on accident. Some point I closed it on the chat. I'm sorry, chat.
Yes, Crossfire Cat. Healing House Pilgrim is brand new as of today, in addition to Ornithopter. On all my primers now, I have a change section. So anytime I make big swaps in the deck, I will put that there. So feel free to go check that out. I'm going to repost my deck list, and I'm going to repost the Winota Discord that I made a little couple weeks ago. I love talking about the deck with people. I love talking about people's new ideas. Let's throw this invite up just one more time.
All right, so I think we're nearing the end, right? Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to cover anything else before we send off?
Sure. I don't know how most people define success with a cEDH list. Obviously, win rate's one thing.
Winning a game with a Boros deck, I would call success.
Winning the game is. So yeah, right. So you start a game with an inherent disadvantage when you're playing a mono white deck, a Boros deck. You're not playing blue or you're not playing black in this format, right? One of the first games I played with this deck, one of my opponents and this objectively at the time was a correct decision. Chose to mana drain Winota over a Gitrog monster. And that's how I kind of defined success with this deck. I as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, this is a real deck.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a
yeah,
pretty reasonable.
it's legitimately one of those decks that it's like decks like Zavala, things like that, where as soon as you give it any freedom, the game snowballs out of control.
It's funny, right? Like, I can talk about Zavala specifically. It's like whenever I play in Zavala, I think people I think that deck is like the best deck in cEDH, but like it's legitimately one of the best decks in cEDH when you don't interact with it at all.
When you don't interact with it, right? Yeah. Exactly.
Which is true for all cEDH decks, but the decks like Zavala get away with it. So
yes.
I think Winota is probably in a similar category where
I agree.
Because of certain limitations in deck building, it appears to not be as powerful as it should be, and then often enough people don't accurately assess it as a threat, and then you win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Paco sort of gets that, but Paco also just draws 4 cards a turn, so who cares?
the big bamboozle plays really help a lot. The things like I was talking about earlier, like Magus of the Moon just being flipped off the top, like Grand Abolisher being flipped off the top, just letting you win, is pretty insane.
I do think in the future, if this deck continues to have success, I think that'll actually be a downside, because I think it will do the opposite of the thing I was just talking about, right? Like,
which will be scarier than it is.
Yeah, exactly. Where like people are like, what if you flip some Magus to the Moon, and then someone who's like newer against the deck is like, I can't beat a Magus to the Moon, and then like they like kill Winota, right? When in reality, like they probably weren't supposed to, because it's like, oh,
I agree.
You're not gonna hit it, but sometimes you do. So.
I will say this is one of those decks that is harder to play than it looks. If you like, we're talking about those options we had earlier with those mulligans. Sometimes you really have to know your meta. You really have to know the decks you are sitting across the table from.
That's stacks. That's just stacks. That's just stacks in this format. Like if you're going to be playing stacks
in general,
pieces,
right? Exactly.
Like I'll say this: like if you want to play stacks pieces in this format, you need to be like one of the best players in the format. And that's why it's very frustrating. Is because like a lot of people who are like in the largest group of players, where they're just like good players who spend a lot of time playing cEDH, like they don't play stacks because they know that they shouldn't. And a lot of people who are entering cEDH will be like, oh, I want to play stacks. I can finally play stacks. I haven't been able to play stacks in years because my play group hates it. And the problem is stacks is like the hardest archetype to play probably. It at least has the highest like feel bads. Like you play the wrong stacks piece, you lose. Where like if you cast Ad Nauseam on the wrong turn, like you can still cast Peer into the Abyss a few turns later.
Right.
Even if the sequencing of that Ad Nauseam is difficult, like you're not gonna I mean, sometimes you lose the game, but it's less likely you'll just like kind of have an invisible loss, Like it's harder to learn lessons when you're playing stacks for sure.
Totally, I very much agree. It is a tough archetype to learn. I
think it is like mostly. I think there's a lot of hard. Like, stacks is very punishing. Stacks is very difficult to play, but also like it's so hard to learn from, because like your decisions are your losses, where they come from, are invisible. They're usually, I mean, maybe not the majority of the time, but many times your losses are your fault, but you can't tell because like someone tutored for a different card because they were afraid of your stacks piece instead of tutoring for a winning condition, and then they didn't go for it, so the next player didn't go for it, and then it like led to some mid-range deck getting ahead and winning, and so like, like it's just invisible. So I think if you're interested in stacks, you just have to know like it's really hard. It's not. It's not like most archetypes.
Now, to be clear, if you are just looking through the paper primer, not paper primer, but the online page on Moxfield, you're going to notice that there are some. First of all, I have like a 50-card maybe board, so that's a lot of that was going through Scryfall and just literally picking every single human and saying, is this viable? Is this viable? Is this viable? I have written a pretty extensive primer. This video is going up there. One more thing to note is that the deck's very flexible, as any stacks deck is. There is a lot of options, but two, you're going to notice things that are not in the deck, right? Things like Rest in Peace, which is like a very powerful stacks piece.
Palace Jailer.
Yeah. Thanks, Braden. But you're going to see things like that and be like, why isn't that in there? And the answer sometimes will be like, you just need enough consistency with your commander so that when you do have that leeway that we talked about earlier, you win the game. because that's the thing. With a deck like this, you have to take your advantage and be aggressive and attack in. Also, the reason Najila has success in a very similar light to this is like sometimes people really don't know how to handle a bunch of creatures beating them to death. It is definitely a thing. I'm not saying to go for the damage as a win con, but people get so worried. Like I was playing a game earlier where someone took my Winota because they were like, oh, the combat damage is going to be the thing that gets me. But I had a Mog Catcher on board, and I just won the game on my upkeep the next turn.
They should have. They should have stolen your Mog Catcher and played the
legitimately, they should have taken my Mog Catcher, which is a wild sentence to say.
Mog Catcher's crazy with Dockside.
It's very good in this deck. But I'm happy to talk with slots about people. There is a Discord for that. There is a Discord for our podcast, which I will also throw up in chat right now. We are the cEDH cast. You can find us in so many places. Look out for us on places like Discord, SoundCloud, Spotify, here on YouTube, stuff like that. We are always making content for everybody. So I'm really excited about this list. I'm submitting it to at least the library and then probably the DDB closer to the actual submission date next time around. So I'm going to keep testing it, and it's really fun. Like, honestly, it's a really fun deck, and I'm very excited to have built it, and happy to talk about people with it. So, yeah,
it's definitely like hyper spicy.
Yeah.
I think it's like really an interesting archetype. I think it definitely, like, when you put it at the beginning of the stream, I think it really put it into perspective. I just kind of want to repeat it partially for this reason. Is it put it into perspective, like why it has been so successful. It really does, like, if you look at the two weaknesses of Boros, they really are like mana and cards, and this deck just like turns any creature that isn't a human into a card advantage engine, which is pretty absurd. I mean, we play those like in other decks. Like, people have been known to play Oakham Adversary. This just turns your like every
Ornithopter into an Oakham Adversary
that then also creates a mana advantage, which is like pretty insane.
Yeah.
It's on attack too. It's not even on damage, so it's like insane.
Exactly.
So,
and that and the fact that the human sub-creature type one is a very broad one in Magic's history, right? Like, there's thousands of humans in these colors, and because of that, you have access to some really tight combos. In the fact that I have the Snoop combos, we have multi-layered Kiki Jiki combos and multi-layered Splinter Twin combos. So it's been really nice in that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. I'm excited to see how it develops. I know that this is also one of those decks that just gets better every set by a significant margin.
Yeah, definitely.
They're going to keep printing white and red cards, and they're going to continue to be creatures, and they're going to continue to either be human or not human.
It's funny because you said that, because M21, I was building this deck right before the set came out, and then they spoiled Snoop, and I was like, oh my god, it's real now. It's like, it's a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I expect that to keep being a thing.
I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me about this, bud. It's been a fun project, so.
Yeah, I'm excited that you've had so much success with the deck, and I'm excited for people to pick it up and, like, experiment with it and find out how it does in their own formats. Like, I don't know, I'm still not, like, convinced this is, like, I think this is, like, Selvala good, which is, like, maybe, that might even be a hot take. I really don't know. But
in pods it's been playing on that level, so I'm happy with that result. So.
I'm not sure, like, if the bar for cEDH, like, playable is above or below Selvala, but I think a lot of people would put it below, and so that means, my opinion, like, if I think it's slightly above or below, like, Selvala, I think it's above Selvala probably. And most people think that that's above the bar, then this is a cEDH deck, and that means it's probably the first Boros cEDH deck, so I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
awesome.
I think we've been patting Ian on the back and making it for long enough. I'm just teasing. Ian kind of deserves it. He definitely deserves it. This is a pretty sick list. So,
thanks, bud.
All right. We're gonna hop off. Yeah. Selvala is a good compliment for Boros. We're gonna hop off. Thanks everyone who's been in the chat for hanging out. If there were any technical issues or anything you had a problem with, please reach out to us. we really want to fix it and make it better. I don't know if you can tell, but like from the last time we did a live stream, this looks pretty good, right? This looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Fun piece of trivia I wanted to ask you, Braden. Do you know when the last time we streamed was? It was the practice day of the last Cockatrice tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Long
gonna say,
time.
Yeah. So, well, like.
Anyway.
It's hard. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, have an amazing time, everybody.
Oh, by the way, 3-mana Thalia is in this deck. Someone asked, is Glow Rider.
Yes.
I don't know if you're on are you on Bring Wingmare?
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, you're on both then. Sweet. All right.
Oh yeah.
I will both see you all maybe later this week. I don't know if we have an episode coming out this week. We might not. It might be our first.
Before we go, if you want to pick up any of these amazing Boros cards, if you want to do that, please use this affiliate link if you're going to buy already at TCG Player. That supports the channel and everything we do here and allows us to talk about these very spicy decks. Please use that link. It is in the chat right now. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your gracious time. It's greatly appreciated.
All right. Thanks. See y'all. Bye.
Bye.
All right.